Android has several interesting features that are very useful in building very versatile apps. So over the next several weeks, we're going to explore several different features of Android and several different capabilities that are available in Android in order to help us understand how we can leverage these for implementing interesting new applications. Now, in order for us to illustrate all the different features of Android, we are using a music player as an example to show the different features, how we can make use of them in implementing an app. So in this particular week, we'll start out by implementing a music player app. To get you started, we have provided a zip file with some configured code that is available to you on the course website. So you download this zip file called musicplayer.zip. So I have already downloaded it to my workspace. So first and foremost, I'm going to uncompress the zip file. And once the zip file is uncompressed, then I have the entire directory structure for the music player app in place on Workspace. Now let me show you how you would import an existing application into Eclipse. So let me start our Eclipse. And in Eclipse, you go to File and Import. And you see under General, you see this existing projects into Workspace. Click on Next. And then when it asks you to select the root directory, simply browse to the appropriate directory, and I have already selected. So you see that this is in the Workspace directory. So if you go to the Workspace directory, you see the music player file in there. So I just click on Open, and then it'll pop up suggesting the project that is already there in the directory. So go ahead and import this. Don't click on this because we have already copied the project into the Workspace directory. So you simply go ahead and click Finish, and then you would notice that the music player code is already imported into Eclipse here. Now let's go ahead and then examine this code. So now within this code, you notice that I have two packages that are given here. Now this particular package, hkustcomp4521.audio.player, contains the source code for the music player class that I have already implemented. For the moment, let's not go into the details of what is contained in the music player app. We will come to that when we explore how media support is provided in Android. Instead, let's just go ahead and open this particular package here, hkustcomp4521.audio, and then you will see one single Java file there called musicactivity.java. So let's go ahead and open this musicactivity.java file. In there, I have given you some details about the music player class that I have provided you in this other package. So I have provided you the details of the music player class and also provided the methods that are available from the music player class. Now in the activity, you simply create an instance of the music player class, and then you can use these methods to control the playback of the song that is already embedded in the music player app. Later on, we will see how we can generalize this further, but for the moment, let's just stay with that. Now, in this particular exercise, what we are going to do is take this music activity and then create a few things inside this activity class to enable us to run the music player app. Now you see an instance of the music player app already up on the screen on the right side in my emulator. Let me just go ahead and then exit from it, and then we'll see how we'll go about creating such an app in our code. So first and foremost, what we see as we go through the onCreate method of the music player activity. So I have already created all the things that are needed for the music activity. So I have created the by extending the activity class, I have created this music activity, and then also said that we'll implement an on-click listener. So I have included some stub code for the on-click listener already here. And so we'll go ahead and then modify this file to complete the example. So in this particular lab exercise, our objective is to learn, first and foremost, how to create a new layout and then use some features of the layout capabilities that Android provides for creating nice user interface screens. Then we will look at how we will um, get the references to all the buttons on the screen, and then we'll hook up all these buttons to the corresponding on-click listeners for each one of those buttons in there. So let's go ahead and then click on the on create. First and foremost, let's create a layout for this particular example so that we can see how we can create a nice screen that can enable us to control the music player software. Okay. Okay, proceeding ahead with our example here, we'll first create a layout that enables us to create a nice user interface for our music playing application. So let's start out by saying layout and then new Android XML file, and then it comes up with this screen here. Let's just call it main, and then we will use the relative layout in this particular case. Okay, so as you see, we have to name it main with a small m. If you use a capital M, it doesn't allow you to create that. So we create a relative layout and click finish. Now, so this is a different layout from what you have seen before, which was the linear layout. So once you have that here, you have the main.xml file. Let's go ahead and edit this XML file and then create a few buttons on the screen in order to enable us to control the application. First and foremost, as you saw from the previous example of the Hello Friend extended, if you needed multiple buttons on the screen, one good thing to do is to start out by creating a horizontal linear layout in there to start with. So let me position the horizontal linear layout in the middle, and then for the linear layout, let me control a few parameters here. So we'll say down here, we'll say align parent bottom equal to true. Okay, so so it'll be at the bottom of the screen there, and then we'll say width should be instead of wrap content, we'll say width should be match parent so that it fills the entire width, and the height should be wrap content. So now this is situated at the bottom of the screen. So let's now drag in a few buttons onto this linear layout. So we need 4 buttons. 1, 2, 3, and 4 buttons here. Now, the first button, we will name it as rewind. So any music player would typically have a rewind button. So I will also name the button as rewind button so that I can reference it in the code there. And then the next button, we'll name it as pause, and also the ID for the pause, I'm using small letters to use the ID label. The next one, let's call it play, and the corresponding button ID will also be play. This is just so that we know exactly what we are referencing. And then the last button, we'll call it forward. As you have noticed, any typical music player will have buttons of this nature. So let's go ahead and create these 4 buttons. Okay, now once we have created these buttons, then let's go ahead and save the layout, the main.xml layout. Now this screen can now be used to control the music playing application. So go back to the musicactivity.java, and then in here in musicactivity.java, now we need to set the layout to be the XML file that we just created. So we say set content view and say r dot layout dot, and then you see the main already popping up in there, and then main, and that's it. So now the main XML layout file that we just created will become the UI that is being displayed by this activity when it starts out. Now once we have created the layout file, obviously we need also to get references to the 4 buttons on the screen, so that when the user presses those buttons, you're going to create appropriate actions to be taken in response to clicking of those buttons. Now, for your convenience, I have already declared 4 buttons up top there. So player, rewind, forward, and pause. So I'm going to now get the references to each one of them. So in the previous lab, we have already seen how we create the references. So let's say player button is equal to button. So because this is a button, so in Android we would say button, find view by ID, r dot ID dot, and then you see the play in there. So we select the play button. Okay, that completes the player button. Let's just initialize the on-click listener for this, and then say this, because we are going to declare the on-click listener down below. So this is for the player button. So let's go ahead and do the same for the remaining 4 buttons, which is rewind button and r.id. Rewind, and then say set on-click listener. We're going to use the same on-click listener for the 4 buttons. So for the forward button, again repeating the same exercise for the 4 buttons, forward button, and then set on-click listener, and lastly for the pause button. Okay, for the pause button. Again, repeating these. So now we have all the 4 buttons referenced in the code and the corresponding on-click listener that is going to be invoked when any of these buttons are going to be clicked. Now, coming down, we see some additional code here. This is what starts up the music player. So I have created an instance of the music player class here, and the instance is named player. And I have initialized the player to play one particular song. For the moment, that's sufficient enough for us to learn how to create a music player. So we'll leave it there. We'll come back to modify the player to allow us to play multiple songs and then allow the user to select the songs, and then we'll also improve the user interface much better in the later labs. For now, we have to go and modify the on-click listener there. So for your convenience, I have already set up the switch statement in here so that I can then recognize which particular button is clicked. So the first case I would deal with is r.id.play, and so let's say break. So inside this case, when the play button is clicked, what am I expected to do? So I would say player, and when you look back at the code in documentation here, you see this method called resume. So when the play button is clicked, we're going to resume playing the song from wherever it was stopped. So that's the play button for there. Now let's go ahead and do the same for the remaining cases. r.id.pause. Again, so you see that we have the pause method already given for us, and we'll repeat the same for forward. I generally tend to do my formatting of the code as I go along so that it looks clean for me to look at. So I see that we have a forward method already defined for that particular class. So, and then finally, we should have the rewind case. So going up there, that's it. So now the activity class is properly initialized. So let's go ahead and then save, and then let's see what it does on the screen. So we'll go ahead and start the music player, and you should see the music player now coming up on the screen, on the emulator screen to your right. And we'll now listen to the music player playing out the song that it has been configured with. So obviously, when the music player app comes up, so you click on the play button. This is something that you expect. Click on the pause button, so the song pauses. Click on the play again, it resumes from wherever you started. And then you can click on the rewind button, and then so it rewinds.
If you need some advice on how to cry all night, come to me.
And pause, and there you go. So now let's continue playing the song. And we notice that the song continues to play in the background. Okay, so we'll pause at this stage
and falling up in love. Come to me, I'm
So that's how the Music Player application works. This is a very simple user interface for the Music Player. So obviously we're going to enhance this user interface to give a much more better looking user interface with nice image buttons and so on. So that will be the follow-up exercise for this particular lab. So we'll look at that in the next lab. Okay.